So I power ranked the Emea teams going into 2025, which is basically just like a tier list. These are based on pretty reliable leaks and signings that have taken place so far, but I wanted to explain my picks because there are a lot of people who did not agree with me. First, I have Team Vitality, who I don't have ranked as the best team, but I just wanted to go over them first. I have this team ranked at 6, but truth be told, I think that's about the best they could do. That is their ceiling, in my opinion. They have added Les from Loud and Durkee from Fnatic, two incredible pickups, and you might think to yourself, how is this a bad thing? How could they be 6th? And there are multiple problems, in my opinion, that are just very hard to overlook. First, they have dropped their IGL and made the ex-primary duelist Safe the new IGL, and he will be swapping roles to controller, which the role change I fully support, because we've seen many good teams move away from putting their IGL on controller and instead putting a very mechanical good player, like a second duelist almost, on controller. Like we saw with Sentinels and Tens, Genji and Karen, and EDG with Chichu and Smoggy. Now here's where the problem is. Safe, who is a rookie IGL, is now IGLing against people like Sadak, Boaster, and Boo at just the regional events. In terms of firepower, this team is obviously top tier, but it's just giving 2024 NRG vibes. I think Safe is undeniably a great player, but will he be able to outcall great IGLs his first time around? I don't think the firepower will be enough. I hope I'm wrong, but we'll just have to see. Another gamble, in my opinion, is that Les and Safe may clash with each other. Both these players have been known to clash with former teammates before, with Les being cited as one of the reasons Aspas left Loud, and Safe's entire ex-team calling him toxic. Long story short, I don't think someone like Les will respect Safe as an IGL if things get tough. I think there are bound to be disagreements that will internally kill this team. Next, Carmine Corp, who actually have ranked the 3rd best team to come out of EMEA, but I think their ceiling is very high, and by the end of the year they very well could be the best team. This is another somewhat risky roster due to their roles. Essentially, most of them will not be playing their main role, which could be problematic, but in this case I think it has a lot of potential. The roster is Saigetsu, previous Sentinel player who will be switching to Smokes, which I like in fact due to him being a very mechanically gifted player. Also, Sentinel to controller, that switch just makes a lot of sense. Sadak, I imagine, will stay flex role just like he was last year, even though he's been known to play Sentinel. Avez, a Sentinel player who also plays Scan Initiator, which I don't entirely like. If you're going to build a fresh roster from scratch, I think they should just go with someone who specializes in playing Scan Initiator, since Sentinel and Scan Initiator are such different roles. Then they have Elite, great Turkish player who is also a Sentinel main, I imagine will just stay on Sentinel. And finally Martine, who is just an insane duelist. What I would have done personally, keep Sadak as Sentinel, I feel like that's when he's at his best. Then pick up an experienced flex player and maybe Scan Initiator player, but ultimately I think Avez is fine. Or if Sadak wants to play flex, I think they should have kept Thomasy. I think they trolled by letting him go, but clearly they had a different vision for this roster. But anyway, next is Team Liquid, who I've ranked as the 8th best roster to come out of EMEA, pretty low. So their roster is Nats, Kamek, Patitek, Kiko, and Camo. Firstly, hot take maybe, but I don't think Nats should be a main IGL. This is going to take away from his own gameplay. I think they should have brought in another IGL and just let him be prime Gambit Nats. Especially since historically we've seen it be a problem for lurk players to be an IGL. Nats is a great lurker. I think he'll have to sacrifice something. Ultimately, I don't think we're seeing full potential Nats with him being an IGL. Also, this Camo fella has some skeletons in his closet. But I think it's a good dynamic. Nats is a married man, responsible. He's in control. He's a Masters winner. I think you need a bit of a degenerate on your team, which is what you're getting with Camo, so good luck to them. Also, Patitek and Kamek are both very solid players, and I think Team Liquid's ceiling could be like a top 5 this season. But next I want to briefly go over number 1 and 2, which are somehow controversial picks. At number 1 I had Team Heretics, literally 0 changes. They were easily the best EMEA team last year. I think all the imports coming in won't affect this team. They're already internationally good. They all play their roles well, and I think their ceiling is number 1, but they could maybe fall to like top 2, top 3 in my opinion. At number 2 I had Fnatic. A lot of people didn't like that I had them here. Maybe just because of the hype of all the other changes in EMEA, but Fnatic picked up the best player from tier 2, a young Polish child, who was just smurfing on everyone in Ascension. During EMEA Ascension, he had a .98 kills per round ratio, which means when you load into a fresh round, there's a 98% chance he would get a kill, which is just insane. I think Durkee is probably the greatest duelist of all time, but if they're going to get anyone to replace him, it should probably be this young boy or Aspas. But I think number 2 is their ceiling, but they could fall to like a top 4 team. Solid overall. Next I have Na'Vi, is the 4th best team to come out of EMEA. Listen, this is a bit of a sleeper team, especially compared to all the changes going on in EMEA. They picked up Hero from Fnatic and Koala Noob from M80, who is just a super underrated duelist. But their roster is Hero, Koala Noob, Angel, Xiao, and Ruxic. Also with great coaching staff, I just have a lot of faith in this team. I think their ceiling, in my opinion, is top 2. but they could end up anywhere in the top 5. So good luck to them. Number 5, I have Foot. Actually really like this lineup. Pretty much the same as last year, just minus CNED and plus a young Turkish child, Zeus, which is great. I think they could be a lot better than last year. I think their ceiling is the top 3, but anywhere in the top 5 would not really surprise me for this team. At 7th, I have Gentlemates, who pretty much scrapped their entire front roster. They've picked up some really solid players like Zipan and Click, probably the 2 most notable in my opinion. Overall, pretty solid team. Final 4 I will briefly go over. At number 9, BBL. Solid lineup, nothing too crazy. I think they'll likely end up as the middle of the pack team. I don't see them winning anything, but I also don't see them being dead last like they were last year. Still have yet to have their 5th leaked, so I could certainly see them being much higher than 9th, depending on their final member. Number 10, Koi, who are actually imported a tier 2 IGL from America. Flya, he's solid. The rest of the team is pretty solid, but unfortunately Emea is just stacked this year. I see this roster being kind of middle of the pack, especially compared to like top 4. At number 11, I have Giant X. Now, depending on their 5th, they could actually be pretty solid, although I have them at 11th, but it's hard to rank these fully fledged super teams against like teams that just have 4 players. But I recommend Thomasy for their 5th. I'm not sure how Carmine Corp let him go still. And lastly, I have Apex, who you just gotta feel bad for. Their star player got stolen by Fnatic and lost Soulcast to Koi. Truly tragic. You gotta feel bad for this team because they're already fighting an uphill battle coming from tier 2 to tier 1. And then you just lose half your team. Truly sucks. God bless them. If you made it this far, please make sure to comment your own top 3 or top 5. And yeah.